Yep, now we are.
All right. All right, so I found that video that I was not able to find before. We're just going to look at a bit of it, only because it's an interesting cultural artifact, because it is truly amazing to me that this video was made in China and still exists on the internet. Bean Boy and Gay Pirate, where the gay bar at?
A minute. Yeah, Gay Pirate, here we are. Hey. What should we do? Where the gay bar at?
Now you realize, of course, in China, there are no gay people, right? Officially, there are no gay people.
Big ass square with a chairman in the picture. They say this place is a gay shaped fixture. We gotta get out to where the bears look. Yo, gay pirate, did I catch your nipples perk?
Here, Bean Boy, I found the pearly gates, temple of heaven, where you find your mate. Old people, young people, no hot guys. Looks we gettin' makes me close my thighs.
Come to Beijing, my DJ make you come, bust on my door, shoot him down with my gun.
So you can watch the rest of that on your own.
Oh, I get it. I get why that rooster is in the picture.
Yeah. So one of the things is, this used to be on Gia Lee's page. She had a whole collection of things, including she did sort of a photojournalistic essay of a formal industrial zone that was like just absolutely laid waste to by, you know, sort of industrial production. All that stuff is gone. So the only stuff you find now on her page is leftover women. This is no longer attached to her site, but it still exists there in Flickr. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this became property that was too hot to handle in terms of attaching to her name in Beijing, where she's still living and studying. All right? Now, let's see. Let's look a little bit at your jurisprudential projects. So most of you figured out how to use these groups. So if I'm on this thing and I go to people, see, as the teacher now, I can go in, and what I get is I have the option of viewing user groups. Whereas if you're in a group, when you go in courses and groups, your group is something that you could go join. So if we look at 21st Century Intelligence, I think you people did it in the Pages page. You created a page, yeah. And so here you've got this thing that the format is a little strange, but in effect, you know, you've got it. It's better for people to be experts in one field than to have a bit of knowledge in several different fields, etc. And now, I don't know if the way this is displaying. So this is probably, I'm not being able to get to that, you know, column B, and you can probably get to it on your computers. One of the things I noticed, in some cases, here was position A, and over here you want position B or position Z. And in some cases, they weren't that diametrically opposed. And in some cases, it was, here's position A, which looked like the position that you probably support. And then over here is this straw man. So in argument, a straw man is this flimsy version that you expect to lose anyway, right? So what you want to do is make sure that both positions, that one, they're diametrically opposed, and two, that both of them are sort of as realistic and reasonable positions that someone would really hold on the two sides. And Dr. Ambrose and I can look at these and sort of interrogate them and find out if it looks like you're setting it up where one is a little weak. Another possibility is that here you've got position A, and it is a avocado, and here you have position B, and it's a Chrysler. You know, that somehow the two things are not in the same family of things. And we can look at those and see that they are. So in one case, if one side is a value claim, yada, yada, yada is good, and the other side is a value claim, we should do yada, yada, they're from different families of argument, okay? So proposal arguments are not in the same family as value arguments. Value arguments and definitional arguments are pretty much the same family, but proposal arguments, it's a different family. causal arguments, X causes Y, it's a different family. So we'll be looking at these to make sure that it looks like you've got two things that are equally far apart and nicely diametrically opposed, okay?
Wait, so when are we finding out what you thought of what we've done so far?
I'd say, what is today? Today's Wednesday. Before next Wednesday, you will get feedback on sort of the goodness of your two opposing poles in our estimation, okay? Sound reasonable?
Because there are some things that raise flags about mine.
Okay. All right. Now, let's see.
Does ours show up properly? I mean, which are the ones that aren't showing up properly?
Let's see. And again, it could be on the display on this machine, because one of the things that happens is, if I weren't projecting up there, this would display different here. So what happens is when you've got one of these desktop things connected to a projector, that controls the display of this and sometimes controls it in a way that's not all that great, particularly when you've got a HTML space that's 3 columns. So I suspect that looking at it on our own computers, we're going to be able to scroll to and get to all of your content. And if not, we'll ask you for it in a different form. All right. So your question was, is yours displaying properly? Yours is, so let's see. If we got people, we've got people, we want, we got to get back out of, we got to go to the course, go to the people, go to the user groups, and yours is political, ideological, and then go to the pages. Yeah, yours is displaying well. So what my guess is, you put it into a table and put the table into here.
Yep.
And so
No, I
that's,
started the table on the thing actually.
Yeah, that's what we did.
I started the table on the.
yeah, so basically, when you're in the compose mode, you get to put a table. So here we've got two-party representation, nonpartisan democracy. I actually put a note in this one down at the bottom.
Oh, you did?
California, which for years has engaged in something called government by initiative, might provide an interesting example or counterexample. Time magazine had a piece. So in California, what happens is anybody and his brother can basically get enough signatures and put something on the ballot. And as a result of that, as a result of 30 or more years of that, they say that's one of the reasons why California is broke. California is the richest state in the nation. It is filled with all kinds of people making all kinds of money, and it is totally broke. One of the reasons it's totally broke is about 30 years ago, they had Proposition 13 that said, we're not going to keep raising property tax. California homes are worth a fortune. This thing's worth like $5 million. We're not going to raise your property tax to pay for schools and stuff. And so people said, well, if you do that, you're going to have to close the schools. You're going to have to close the libraries. They said, oh, no, that's not going to happen. They had to close the libraries and they're closing the schools. So California is a very interesting sort of experiment in more direct democracy. But then what happens is somebody with $1 bazillion, some real estate developer says, okay, I'm going to hire a bunch of people to go to a bunch of malls and get a bunch of signatures and then put this on the ballot. And then I'm going to spend $1 bazillion on TV ads and get people to vote for it. And so moneyed interests can get regular Joe to vote for stuff that's not in their best interest. So it's a very direct form of democracy that some people say is absolute lunacy. So I just threw that in as a link to what you had produced. All right? All right, I want to go to the, let's see, I'm going to close this one. I'm going to go here. I want to go to the aesthetics page because we want to spend a little bit of time on aesthetics in part because, oh no, got to go up here. I'm going to start by going to a page that I created that was just about aesthetics. Aesthetics. And because all of us, even if this is not your topic, all of us are dealing with education and the arts. And the arts, aesthetics are central to the arts. So I've got there the Greek word aesthetikos, and it's Greek for aesthetics. And so basically it comes from the verb I perceive. And there's some pretty good Wikipedia article. But if we define aesthetics as the study of sensory or sensory emotional values, sometimes called judgments of sentiment and taste, more broadly, scholars in the field define aesthetics as critical reflection on art, culture, and nature. What does this have to do with education? Well, when and where curricula still includes the arts, it's possible that schools are engaged in trying to teach taste And that gives rise to questions about whether it can and should be done. Okay? Now, if we go to the aesthetics group, view user groups, aesthetics, I think it was probably pages. I started this page for them, and then I joined as a student because they've only got 3 members, so it seemed like they could benefit from somebody being here. And this part I just added at the bottom, and it was in response to something Nicole wrote. Nicole wrote, she said, when I'm watching those shows, like So You Think You Can Dance, or The Voice, or what's the one about fashion design? Project Runway. That if it's a discipline in which she has experience in education and knows, she agrees with the experts. And if it's something she doesn't agree with the experts. And I said, that's really interesting. And so I came up with what I would hope would be a controversial claim. In bottom 2 paragraphs. In response to Nicole, who noted that her aesthetic judgments regularly concurred with the experts in arts in which she was educated, and regularly diverged from the experts in arts in which she was not educated, I'm going to make what I hope will be a controversial claim that might stir some thoughts and emotions. Arts education is regularly engaged in teaching students what they should like, respect, and emulate. And because arts education is regularly reserved for the upper classes, arts education regularly engages in the practice described in Ways of Seeing as the privileged minority striving to invent a history which can retrospectively justify the role of the ruling classes. Right? Now, all of you have had some arts education, right? Many of you have testified that you have musical training, okay? So, I want a show of hands. Everybody here who thinks they are a musician because they've learned enough about an instrument, or they're enough of a good vocalist that they could say, I'm a musician. Let's see a show of hands.
Your boy. Just kidding.
Okay. All right. So I want all the musicians over on this side of the room. So if you're a musician, you're on that side of the room.
Well, that's a bit of a tricky question. I've had a lot of music training, but I wouldn't call myself a musician.
Well, a couple of you stated you regretted not continuing with some instrument that you used to play.
What if I've had no training, but I love to sing, and I'm really bad at it?
Oh, well, see, if you're really bad at it, then you're on this side. So over here, everybody
good at it.
who is either semi-accomplished on a musical instrument or semi-accomplished as a vocalist on this side of the room, and everybody who says, I got no musical chops whatsoever on this side of the
Well,
room.
I don't think I've got any music.
Oh wait, I
But
can
you used to
rap.
play the violin, right?
I can sometimes do.
Is that acceptable?
You could pick up a violin now and play a song and we would think it was music?
Yes.
Get over there.
Wait, what if I can rap?
That's the criteria.
That's music.
I'll leave that up to you. You decide. You decide.
It was fun definition.
Because you're on the non-musical side? Well, maybe that's the good side. Maybe it's like that thing like blue-eyed people are smart and brown-eyed people are dumb. Maybe non-musicians are the good Who's my videographer?
Wait,
You're the
Daddy's like
videographer?
these shoes.
Am I still on camera?
No.
Okay.
Are you gonna play something?
Yeah.
Turn the camera on.
Okay, that hand, yeah, okay, that'll get me on camera. All right, so remember a while ago, we did value arguments. The value argument says X is a good or bad Y because of Z, okay? So I'm going to play a little medley, about 3 tunes here on my concertina. And then, I'm gonna give a couple minutes, and each of you will write a value argument that Tim McGee is a good, bad concertinist, or Tim McGee is a good, bad musician, or concertina music is good, bad music, etc. Because you're gonna give a reason to support your claim of good or bad. It doesn't have to be just good or bad. It could be interesting, or fascinating, or moving, etc. Give you a couple minutes to write those. Then you'll get in pairs and compare them. And then we're going to try and hear if there's a difference between the value arguments made by musicians and the value arguments made by non-musicians. All right? So we have a very brief medley of 3 songs here. I've lost that one. Ta-da! All right. Now, each of you will write on your own separate piece of paper a value argument about my musicianship, my playing, the concertina as an instrument. Something is a good or bad because. You come up with those. And then
Oh wow, this
I will
is like
put you
not
into
easy.
pairs.
I should not be allowed to hold my tongue. Can I get my This is rather difficult. Can I get a piece of paper? No, we're learning. We can verbalize. Don't conform.
So? Yeah. I didn't think we had to ask anymore.
Just making sure a little insecure, you know.
I just felt the connection.
Okay.
I knew That's me like Cody. Jacqueline.
What? Aside from the thing, what's that thing called? Accordion. Isn't it like the same ish? I use both of his hands at the same time. Yeah, I can't do that. Like, I can't play the piano because I can't get this hand to move while the super's die. I can't do it. Like, I can't. And honestly, when I'm playing guitar here, like I was talking about guitar, but I can't. My pinky, I can't get it to function. Like my pinky's just like dead weight. So I think anyone who can like use their hands or music, I think concertina. Concertina.
How you doing? Have you written a value argument?
I love when they talk about
Have you got one?
I had 14 yesterday.
All right. Team up with one other person now and compare your value arguments to each other. So for each pair of two people, you'll be announcing one of them as a reasonable value argument. You know, if you like one better than the other. So basically, you got a couple of seconds to decide which value arguments you'll make. So again, it's such and such is good, bad, or indifferent because. So what you'll be doing is you'll be supporting your claim that it's good, bad, or indifferent because, and you will give a because statement.
While pushing it in and out. My pinky can't How often do you play that?
Well, in football season, I play it a lot more because I like to watch football. I can watch 9 to 12 hours of football on Sunday, but I feel guilty about doing nothing. So if I'm playing my concertina, I'm not doing nothing. I'm watching football, practice my concertina. So my performance goes way down in the summer, comes up in the fall, and then see, I like to play Christmas carols. I'm not allowed to break out the Christmas carols at least until after Halloween. Right? My wife won't tolerate it. So my Christmas carols now I can't play them because I forgot. But starting Halloween, maybe Thanksgiving, those Christmas carols, I forgot.
Can you come in and play something?
Absolutely. No, I tried to play the guitar. I tried to play several instruments. This is the one at which I come closest to being effective. All right, attention everybody. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear a value argument about my concertina playing or about the concertina as an instrument from musicians, and then one from non-musicians, and back and forth a couple times. and see if there's a difference between the kinds of claims made by people with musical training and the kinds of claims made by people without musical training. All right, let's start with some musicians. Who here is willing to make a, and realize I have no pride. I'm not going to be offended if it turns out yes.
Well, I wrote that you sounded good. However, I think that you just maybe had those songs memorized and like you weren't able to like fake it till you make it, you know?
Boo.
But,
Okay.
like I know that's how I am with the piano. Like I have certain songs memorized and I can read music. But like if I mess up and I can't make something up to go along with it and get me back to where I was.
Okay, so in fact, I lost my place in one of the songs and forget. I gotta start at the beginning to get back to that. So as long as I'm not, you don't miss anything. All right, so basically it was pretty good, but memorization, you know, the fact that it was memorized is evidence of a weakness of my musicianship or my relationship with my instrument. Somebody over here, yes, Vanessa.
We said that you were good and we like that we could recognize the songs, but that the concertina for us sounded too sharp for the music. Like I personally really like those songs played by other instruments that
Okay.
are softer.
So one of the things is, you know, so it was pretty good and it was recognizable. And basically, I'm gonna show you some of my artwork too, my painting. I think the fact that I can paint fruit and you know which fruit it is, that's a good thing. I like that. And I think the fact that you could probably recognize which those songs were, I'm rather proud of that accomplishment, okay? And then, in terms of the instrument itself, so it turns out those are three that I think actually, the concertina does okay with them because of what they are, but if you say I like them better on a harp or something, I understand entirely. All right, let's have another one from the musician side.
I like his better.
Okay,
Okay.
Ed, what do you got?
I said I would classify it as good because I wanted to continue listening to it.
Oh wow, that is an excellent argument. So again, and it's a very aesthetic argument. So when we think about aesthetics, we're talking about sort of appreciation and value. Art, we like to look at it, we like to listen to it. Tasty food, we like to eat it. So it was an argument based upon good because I want more of it. All right, excellent. Let's go over here. Yes.
We won't say whose this is. Tim McGee is a rudimentary musician and concerning the concertina. He is skilled in that he is proficient with the instrument, is entertaining, and can compose or play a melody or song from memory. However, the notes played were within a limited range, thus only making the music